Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood.
So Hitman, this movie initially premiered last fall at the Venice Film Festival. It got rave reviews, and so it immediately caught Netflix's attention. They went ahead and acquired the movie for $20 million. It was the largest purchase of a movie out of the Venice Film Festival. In fact, I think it was the largest purchase of any movie out of any film festival for that entire year. And they've been sitting on it for a while to prep it for release this past weekend. But this is Richard Linklater's 23rd feature film. He's been doing this for 35 years. He's an incredibly talented director, very, very successful career, and one of the most, I think, one of the most successful directors when it comes to experimentation in his movies. He's always doing
Absolutely.
something super interesting, whether it's with style, animation, the passage of time, even the characters and some of the things that he examines in his movie. He's always doing something really unique and interesting. But this movie, Hitman, is based on a 2001 Texas Monthly magazine article, which is of the same name, by the author Skip Hollandsworth. This is not the first time he's done this. This movie is actually very similar to his 2011 feature film Bernie, starring Jack Black, which was also based on a Texas Monthly magazine article. So these two movies are based in fact. They're actually based on true stories, and so Hitman has a lot in similar sort of comparison to that Bernie film. But again, Glen Powell is also a part of this, who's been working a lot lately, really making a big name for himself. He'll be in Twisters later this summer, and so Glen Powell is obviously on a hot streak ever since he was really introduced to the masses a couple of years ago in Top Gun Maverick. And so yeah, with all of that out the way, man, I will pass it over to you. What do you think about this new crime action comedy, Hitman?
Crime action comedy is it's a good way to put it, because this movie is so many things. First and foremost, Glen Powell, a star, man. Every time like a star like that comes out, I always give them like a couple movies to be like, okay, I need you to prove to me a couple times that you're him. Like I need, like, oh, I liked you in that. Oh, I liked you in that too. Can you give me one more? Hitman is the one more for me. Glen Powell is a star. I think he's exceptional. I think he's amazing, and this movie proves it, because this movie, though it's called Hitman, it's not as actiony as one might think. In fact, it's very rom-commy in so many different ways, and often actually serves as a dark thriller as well. But Glen Powell plays a philosophy professor who works with the cops on occasion, and something happens and he ends up becoming a pretend hitman. And what they do is they get confessions out of people while the hitman is meeting with them. This pretend hitman is meeting with them. And Glen Powell again steps into that role as the pretend hitman, and he's forced to take on just a different persona than this philosophy professor. And it's really cool, because I think I expected him to be the hitman perfectly, right? But a philosophy professor, the dude from Top Gun, like you said, this charming dude from Anyone But You, this dude, like, what? And it worked. He played that role as a philosophy professor very well. This kind of somewhat square logic nerd, very good. And I think it helps the movie work so perfectly, because on one of those runs, he ends up falling in love with one of the people that he's trying to coerce into giving a confession that they want to kill somebody. And that's pretty much what this movie is about. I had a really good time watching this movie. I laughed when I needed to. I was on my seat when it needed to. And the thing is about this film, it doesn't like completely reinvent any of the wheels. It just rides very well. It uses that the fun chemistry between Glen Powell and Adria Arjona. It does a good job of using the charisma of Glen Powell to for you to smile every now and then. It does a good job of using moments as he's a philosophy professor talking to his students, and then turning that around in the next scene or two of showing you how that applies to the movie. It does a good job of all of those things. And overall, just turns out to be a very fun watch, man. I didn't know what I expected this movie to be honest. I've like kind of always ignored the trailers, but I was hearing good things about it. And I left, I left this movie very satisfied by what I got. I'm not surprised Netflix purchased this movie after Venice, because they needed a win, because they're struggling constantly for me to make really good films. And I think Hitman is just what it says. It's a hit. So again, had a very good time with it. It's very rom-com-y. A lot of people aren't gonna understand that. Or aren't going to expect that, which is kind of cool to me. You expect a lot of gun things and fighting, and that's not what this movie is at all. The last thing I'll say, the ending is probably not going to work for everybody, but I was like, yeah, that's how I expected it to end. And so, yeah, man, I enjoyed this movie very thoroughly. And I can't wait to see what other people think about it, man. I think it's going to be very interesting, and I think it's going to do very good on Netflix.
So first and foremost, Richard Linklater, a director I really admire. He's made some undeniable classics and just some quality ass films. I mean, from Dazed and Confused to The Perfection of the Before trilogy, which is one of my favorite trilogies ever made, to even like more enjoyable films like School of Rock, and him taking this turn also doing more true stories as of late in what he's doing with Hitman, or what he did a few years ago with Last Flag Flying, or the other movie that I mentioned earlier with Jack Black, Bernie, which is also another really funny but also darkly weird type of movie. He's just always taking really, really interesting turns. I mean, even a movie like A Scanner Darkly, which is just like truly experimental in the form of animation, and using rotoscoping and all of that stuff is just like really interesting. He's always just taking weird turns that you just can't expect from him. But I think now with Hitman, this is probably the most crowd pleasing movie that he's made in a really, really long time. So much so that I love this movie, and I think that it's going to end up being one of my favorite movies of the year. And it's something that I know that I'm going to revisit very, very soon and rewatch, just because of all of the amazing components and elements that are a part of this, that just create a really complete experience that feels like a throwback to movies that used to get made in theaters that just don't get made anymore. We would get a lot of these in the 80s and the 90s, these star making turns for particular actors to really just showcase their breadth of acting and what they can do with playing multiple characters and doing things that are really dynamic, people that have really extensive backstories. Like, this would always just be sort of a star driven vehicle for somebody to showcase their talent, and it would go on to be super successful in the theater. People would love it, and it would create more opportunities for that particular actor or actress. They're just not made anymore because studios are just too gun shy to budget these things out and to put them in theaters, because now it's a crap shot on what's going to make money these days. But now that this movie has landed on Netflix and will reach a global audience and more people can see it, I'm at least happy about that, because this movie definitely deserves your attention, because Glen Powell is carrying this thing on his shoulders. He puts all of it on his back. He portrays so many different personas and characters. He goes to so many different registers and does so many funny things. Like, the first 30 minutes of him doing this whole fake hitman job is him just learning how to do it and how to perfect it. And the fact that they even took time to just showcase that and see the repetition and what it would take to be truly amazing at this and to make it truly believable. We take the time to just sit there. Adria Arjona doesn't even come into the movie until like 30 or 35 minutes in. Like, the whole rom-com element doesn't start until the second act. And I was like sitting there wondering, like, well, when is she going to come in here? I thought this was like a two-hander. And it is once she does enter, but it's really focused on Glen Powell. Like, this is a star-making turn for him. He also helped produce the movie. He co-wrote it. This is really his film. And I love that for him, because I've been a big fan of him since he was really introduced to the masses in Top Gun Maverick. But everything he's done since then, from Devotion to Anyone But You to now this, and then, of course, Twisters, I think he'll probably be the best part of that movie as well.
Probably.
This guy is amazing, and he can do so many things, and it's crazy because he is a little bit older. He's not old, but he's like in his late 30s. It just took him a while to get here to now really be recognized to a large portion of moviegoers and movie watchers in this day and age. But I'm just glad that it's here now, because everything he does in this movie and just all the things that he has to just take on, the different personas and the wigs and the costumes and just everything he has to do, the mannerisms, it's amazing. And I read a story that he would often show up to set in a new costume or a new persona, and he wouldn't warn Richard Linklater like what he was going to show up as. He would just show up as something, and he would completely throw him off. And that's like a really risky choice to make. Like, your director doesn't know what you're going to do on any given day, but that creates a spontaneity that you just don't often see. But it resulted in just, I think, the most amazing results, because every single time he stepped into a new character, I'm like, oh, this is hilarious. This is funny.
Hilarious.
There's even a nod to American Psycho and Patrick Bateman in the movie, which I'm like, that's brilliant. It's literally brilliant. We don't have to literally call it out, but if you've seen that movie, you know exactly what it is. And then once Adria Arjona comes into the movie and their romance kicks in, They have so much chemistry. They just work so well together on screen. She's incredible. I love everything I see her in as well. It's hot, it's sexy, it's steamy. You believe it. You believe this love is really building between these two. But then there's also this looming danger because they now have to live a lie, essentially, without giving too much away in the plot. They have to live a lie and they have to maintain this lie. And so it becomes a really, really suspenseful story about how they're going to get out of the situation that they're in. So everything about this movie, it's fantastic. This is an absolute win for Richard Linklater. I mean, for him to be in his 60s, now entering in this new era of his career, to do it at such a high level and to do it for a new, fresh audience who might not be as familiar with his work, but hopefully maybe they'll discover and go back and watch some of those other movies. I mean, this is the best case scenario of what you could probably hope for a well-known director, a really accomplished director, an Academy Award nominated director to make a movie for a streaming platform, which we know has often resulted in a lot of hit or miss opportunities, and sometimes it often very much goes sideways. Luckily, this is not the case. This is the case of another legendary director stepping into this new world of streaming, making a movie, having their vision fully realized, and again, hopefully this will be a huge hit on Netflix and blow up, and a lot of people will see it and realize the star potential of Glen Powell and Adria Arjona, and I'm sure that their careers are going to just continue to take off after this, and I'm really happy to see that. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the brand new Netflix film Hitman. If you've checked this out on the streaming service, definitely hit us up and let us know what you think.